Hello, friends. Welcome to my channel. We often encounter situations in life where we have to make choices that can impact our relationships with others. Sometimes these decisions are easy to make, but other times they can be extremely difficult, especially when it involves letting go of a friend. Today's story is one such example where a man was forced to choose between his friendship with an abusive woman and his new girlfriend. Let's see how this situation unfolded for him and what valuable lesson he learned in the process. It all began when our protagonist, who remained unnamed, was still in high school. He had a group of close friends. The guy had everything going for him: good looks, a great sense of humor, and was popular among both girls and boys. He never had a problem with attracting girls. In fact, he had quite a lot of experience in relationships. However, none of them ever lasted long. And the reason for that was always the same: the girl would eventually start treating him badly. But Mark was never able to recognize it until it was too late. He liked to think of himself as a loyal and devoted boyfriend, always ready to lend a helping hand or listen to his girlfriend's problems. But unfortunately, this trait of his often ended up being exploited by the girls he dated. They would frequently ask him to buy them things, do their homework, or bail them out of trouble. It wasn't that Mark minded helping his girlfriends, but he felt like some of them took his kindness for granted or simply used him for their own benefit. Mark felt that he deserved more than the fleeting relationships that never seemed to last. But he was also afraid of being alone and constantly craved affection and companionship. Little did he know that his path was about to change when he met Lisa. Lisa was a transfer student who quickly became part of Mark's friend group. She was beautiful, intelligent, funny, and most importantly, kind and caring. Everyone, including Mark, was drawn to her and enjoyed spending time with her. However, she soon caught the attention of two of Mark's close friends, Chris and Mike. Both of them started competing for her attention, which made Mark feel uncomfortable and even a little jealous. One day, Mike decided to take matters into his own hands and asked Lisa out on a date. Much to everyone's surprise, she agreed. This left Chris and Mark feeling disappointed, but they respected their friend's decision. For a while, everything seemed fine, but soon rumors began to spread about Mike and Lisa's relationship. People started talking about how Mike was controlling and possessive of Lisa, which made her unhappy. Despite the rumors, it seemed like Mike and Lisa were doing well. They were often seen holding hands, hugging, and sharing intimate moments together. However, one evening after school, Mark witnessed a different side of Mike. He saw him yelling at and even hitting Lisa. Shocked and horrified by the sight, Mark confronted Mike, demanding an explanation. Mike tried to downplay the incident, claiming that it wasn't a big deal and that they were fine. But Mark didn't buy his excuse and warned him to treat Lisa better, or else he would tell everyone what he had seen. Although Mike apologized and promised it would never happen again, Mark couldn't shake off the feeling that something wasn't right. A few days later, Mark's suspicions were confirmed when he saw Mike pushing Lisa to the ground. This time he didn't confront Mike. Instead, he went straight to Lisa, who was crying and sitting alone on a bench. Concerned, Mark sat down next to her and asked if she was okay. When Lisa shared her ordeal with him, Mark felt angry and helpless, knowing that he couldn't physically protect her from Mike. But he was determined to find another way to help. That's when Mark decided to talk to Mike one last time. He told his friend that he knew about his violent behavior towards Lisa and gave him a final warning. If Mike didn't change his ways, Mark would make sure everyone found out what he was doing. Mike, however, didn't seem to care and even threatened Mark, telling him not to interfere if he didn't want things to get ugly. This confrontation left Mark feeling hopeless and afraid. He knew that Mike was capable of doing something drastic, so he decided to talk to Lisa again, hoping to convince her to break up with him. But to his surprise, she told him that she loved Mike and didn't want to break up. Despite this, Mark couldn't bear to see her being mistreated and continued to secretly check up on her, bringing her food and helping her with her homework whenever he could. However, as time passed, he began to realize that Lisa was becoming increasingly distant and cold towards him. She started avoiding him, and whenever they talked, she sounded irritated and snappy with him. At first, Mark didn't understand why Lisa was acting this way. He had always been there for her, and he couldn't fathom that she would treat him coldly without a valid reason. Then one day, everything became clear. Lisa was pregnant. Mark couldn't believe what he was hearing, but when he saw the ultrasound picture in her hand, there was no doubt in his mind that she was indeed expecting a baby. Lisa explained that Mike had forced her into the relationship and she felt trapped. Now that she was carrying his child, she believed that she couldn't break up with him because he would never let her. Overwhelmed with worry and concern for his friend, Mark offered his support, promising to be there for her no matter what. However, he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of betrayal. Lisa, who he had always considered his best friend, had kept such a significant part of her life hidden from him. As weeks turned into months, Lisa's belly grew bigger and her due date approached. Throughout this time, Mark remained by her side, offering emotional support and practical help. He knew that she was going through a difficult time, and he wanted to make sure that she knew she wasn't alone. Despite the situation, Mark couldn't help but feel a growing resentment towards Lisa. He couldn't understand why she had chosen to keep such a big secret from him, and he felt like she had betrayed his trust. Even though he tried his best to be supportive, he couldn't shake off the feeling that he had lost his best friend. As the day of Lisa's delivery approached, Mark found himself torn between his feelings of worry and resentment. He wanted to be there for her, but he couldn't help but feel like she had betrayed him in a way. He grappled with his emotions, unsure of how to act and what to say. When Lisa gave birth to a baby boy, Mark was relieved that both mother and child were healthy. He rushed to the hospital as soon as he heard the news and spent hours by Lisa's side, offering his support and congratulations. Throughout this time, he tried his best to put aside his resentment and focus on being a good friend. After Lisa and the baby were discharged from the hospital, Mark continued to visit them regularly, bringing food and offering any help he could. He knew that Lisa was going through a tough time, and he wanted to make sure that she knew he was there for her. However, despite his efforts, Lisa still seemed distant and cold towards him. She barely acknowledged his presence and never invited him over to her house. This made Mark feel even more unwelcome, and he began to wonder if he had truly lost his best friend forever. As the months passed, Mark realized that Lisa was never going to be the same again. She had become a shadow of her former self, constantly anxious and fearful of Mike's presence. Despite this, he refused to give up on their friendship and continued to visit her and the baby whenever he could. One day, Mark decided to confront Lisa about her behavior. He sat down with her and expressed how much he missed their friendship and asked her why she was keeping him at a distance. Lisa responded by telling him that she was scared of Mike and didn't want him to find out that she was still in contact with someone other than him. Hearing this, Mark felt a surge of anger towards Mike, but he knew that he couldn't do anything to change the situation. He understood that Lisa was trapped and he felt helpless. Nevertheless, he promised her that he would always be there for her, no matter what. From then on, Mark made sure to visit Lisa and her family as often as he could. He brought them food, helped with the baby, and offered his support in any way he could. Despite Lisa's coldness, Mark refused to give up on their friendship. He knew that she was going through a difficult time, and he hoped that with time she would come to appreciate his support. As the years passed, Lisa slowly began to open up to Mark again. She started inviting him over to her house and sharing stories about her life with him. Although there were still moments when she was cold and distant, Mark didn't let it discourage him. He continued to be a good friend and offered his support and understanding whenever she needed it. Looking back, Mark realized that he had made the right decision by staying by Lisa's side. Despite the challenges and difficulties he faced, he had managed to maintain his friendship with her and had become an important part of her son's life as well. He knew that he couldn't have done anything to change the past, but he was grateful for the present and hopeful for the future. This story teaches us that sometimes in life, we have to make difficult decisions that can impact our relationships with others. Choosing to walk away from a toxic relationship can be challenging, but it can also be an opportunity to grow and learn. By doing so, we may lose some friends, but we can also gain new ones who value and respect us. Ultimately, the decision is ours to make, and we should choose what we feel is best for us, even if it means losing someone along the way. So friends, what would you have done if you were in Mark's shoes? Share your thoughts with us in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching and see you next time.